Good afternoon. This is Will McNeil, CEO of Black Tech Jobs, and welcome to Coffee, Tech, and Opportunity. We're excited that you all have been able to join us live. We have an action-packed show. Historically, we focused on bringing together leaders from technology, diversity, recruiting, and our technology leadership has primarily been around the CTO, CIO suite. But what we're doing today is we really want to hear from a level of leadership that has unique challenges, both managing up and down stream within an organization, leading, determining who the first series of frontline leaders will be in an organization, managing a budget, managing people, managing process, and very often being the most senior technical experts in their space. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. We're just going to go alphabetical by first name. I'm going to start with Mr. Phil Morris. Phil, welcome to the show. Welcome to Coffee, Tech, and Opportunity. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you. Phil, if you wouldn't mind, tell the folks a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll bring Steve on soon after.
Sure. Well, thanks, Will. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. My name is Phil Morris. I am a husband, father of 3 beautiful daughters. That's what I do as my full-time job. My part-time job, as I like to call it, is I work at ezCater. I am a director of DevSecOps, leading the infrastructure and SRE and security teams at ezCater. Been doing this for about 20 years now. I'm Boston-based. Started out as a software engineer, moved into leadership roles about almost 10 years ago now. So looking forward to this and want to share more of my experiences. Hopefully can help folks who are either in this part of this career or think about entering in leadership roles, help navigate what that looks like. So
Awesome.
Thanks, Will.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. Without further ado, we're going to bring on Steve Brown. Steve, there we are. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us here at Coffee, Tech, and Opportunity. Steve, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, Will. First and foremost, I think events and opportunities like this are just an amazing thing to put on and give back to the community and just share insights. So I'm very honored and humbled to be here, and I appreciate that. I'm Steve Brown. Like Phil, I do have a full-time job as well. I am the father of 3 girls, and so it keeps me very, very busy. Currently living in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and working for a company called 3Cloud. So 3Cloud does a lot, but I'm primarily responsible for the delivery side of our data and analytics group. So I'm a director of delivery excellence, so serving in multiple capacity, but my job is to make sure that whatever we say we're going to do, we do. So I've been in delivery my whole career, in tech my whole career. Much like Phil, again, for about 20 years. So again, it's an honor to be here and looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Well, Steve, since we're talking with you now, we'll start with you. There's whenever I meet senior level Black tech professionals, they're always exceptionally talented, very bright folks, and I often ask, why tech? You could have done anything. So, Steve, why did you choose technology, or did technology choose you?
Yeah, it's absolutely chose me. So I was one of those people, like I'm sure many of you on the phone, where what I thought I wanted to do as a kid changed quite a bit. I mean, it went from fighter pilot in the Marines to biologist to med school, and actually I almost went to med school at Brody School of Medicine, which is an ECU, and realized I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. Thought being called a doctor was cool, and wanted to be the most educated person in my family. But at the end of the day, I had to go after what was fulfilling for me, and realized I needed to further my education to some extent. Right, I couldn't just go hike the Appalachian Trail for years and not make a living for myself. So decided to go the MBA route. Went to school, studied finance, and got the opportunity to do a rotation program at Bank of America in their fast track manager program. And one of the rotations was in operations, and got my first opportunity to be on a project that was extremely technical. And what I quickly realized is that you have to be dialed into what your natural talents are. If you're going to be successful in this life, you have to understand who you are as a person, what fuels your fire, and how you can apply your natural talents to being successful. And I learned with technology that it's something that is not going to get old. It's something that I will never conquer because there's something always new coming out. And like a moth to a flame, I was really drawn to that. So I'm like, hey, okay, let me go down this path. And obviously I committed to that, and not necessarily as a technologist. There are a lot of smart technical people that I work with that really understand infrastructure and all the different platforms and all that fun stuff. I knew just enough to be dangerous. And what I knew in my natural talents was that I was able to kind of be a quarterback and understanding what it took to craft the perfect puzzle, to put all the perfect pieces together to solve organizations and people's problems. So in being very comfortable in that space, I quickly was allowed to advance because I knew what my natural talents are and I took advantage of those. So it's fun, it's meaningful, and it's going to be hot for a long time. So knowing who I am as a person and what I'm good at and not so good at, applying that to technology that found me, I found a career that I think I could be in for quite some time.
Awesome. And we'll switch here. And Phil, how about you? How did you get into tech? And did tech choose you, or did you choose tech?
Yeah, it's weird. I listened to Steve talk. There's so many similarities, I think, in terms of what I see and experience throughout my career. And so I would say that's not the only path, right, for folks. For me, it's sort of, I fell into it almost in a way. So as a kid, like Steve, wanted to do various different things, right? Whether it's attorney, doctor, all these things sort of came up as these are the things that we see and saw as children. For me, it was a really high school age, right? I saw the things I were interested in, with mechanical engineering, architecture. I didn't quite enjoy them the way that I thought I should, right? And when I look back, started to figure out what some of the things that were similar about the things that I was interested in. And I saw my interest in technology and computers, right, that I had for many years prior, but never really gave any true validity to it because it wasn't something that was touted as a career right back then. This is 20 years ago now, maybe 25. And what I learned over the next few years, I found something that I really enjoyed doing for many reasons. Most and foremost, though, it challenged me, right? I saw an opportunity to learn and push myself in ways that I thought were never even possible, right? I hadn't even fathomed the idea of learning how to write code or learning how to build computer systems. But what I saw was just so much immense potential that I had to learn and develop as an individual that the career trajectory was really endless. And so I see a lot of times now people are looking at getting in tech because they think that it's a QA or it's software engineering or it's ML or it's all these various things. But ultimately, what struck home for me was that it was really about having a way to challenge myself to solve different types of technical challenges. And it didn't matter what the nature of those challenges were. I could have gone various different ways in my career, but all would have been focusing around technology, simply because, as Steve mentioned, there's always something to learn, right? And as soon as you learn it, you have to practice it and master it. And you get to a point of confidence where you think you can do anything, but then you just realize the next day, boom, something else comes in, and you're all of a sudden you're a novice. You don't know how to do that particular thing. And the drive that I had to learn these things, right, and to be the best that I could for me was the most important driver. What kept me in this industry for so long is seeing that constant opportunity for growth and development for myself, doing new things and achieving great things from a business perspective, regardless of what business or industry was. There was always a challenge out there, and that pursuit of learning and applying myself in real material ways for a business was almost something that was euphoric to me in a way. And really, I've chased that for 20 years through various roles in various companies. But that's the one thing that stays constant is technology is always moving. The people around you are always coming for you, right? And you have to constantly work to stay ahead of both the people who are learning just as fast and as eager as you are, but also with the technology and how interesting it is, as we're seeing all kinds of developments and advancements in what computers can do. And so it's really sort of that coalescence of the people and sort of the instinctual urge to do something that's competitive, but also the desire to do something that's impactful to a business or to a team.
Got it. And here in Coffee Tech and Opportunity, we frequently meet Black tech executives and we talk to them about being the first. And so, and even folks who are individual contributors, very often you're the first person who's Black to do whatever it is that you're doing, or you're the only person. to do what you're doing. Can you share something about a cultural conflict that you've experienced as a leader? You both have been in leadership roles for some time now, and what you did to manage through that, because I'm sure there are folks who are watching who are currently leaders or aspiring leaders who experience these things, and very often there just aren't enough of us within each other's sphere to support and both ask and answer questions. So circling back to the questions, what has it been like being the first or the only Black person to do something, and to share a cultural conflict experience that you've had as a leader?
You want me to take that first?
Sure, Steve. Yeah.
Okay. So being the first or the only Black within an organization or within a group is fantastic, right? So there have been times in my career where I've not only been one of a very few minorities. And when I say minority, I mean men, women, old, young, Black, white, Asian, whatever. But being, the only Black person within a room of very senior leaders, that came with a great sense of pride. And there's been times where I've been the only Black and the youngest at the same time. So I've always been reminded how fortunate I am to have made those strides over the years, and the things that I've done to get there, and the lessons I've had to learn. But it comes with a great amount of responsibility and pressure that's expected at every turn, and what I want to be very clear is that these things come with a heavy price sometimes, right? Health, your family, your personal fulfillment. And you have to be very conscious of that. So being the first is rewarding, but don't get it twisted. I mean, it can be heavy.
Yeah.
But with that, I mean, the thing that is most rewarding for me is that you're able to pave the way for others. And I look at it sort of like the social network analysis, if anyone's ever studied that. So there's a body of work out there that characterizes network structures in terms of nodes and links. And being the first allows you to be a node. And it allows you to be a node and reach out and touch other people and spread the being first. So for me, that's the most meaningful part about it, and what's most rewarding about being the first. You think about Mark Dean, Charles Drew, George Washington Carver, Barack Obama, they're nodes, and their ability to touch other people is significant. So, that's the rewarding piece in terms of a cultural conflict that I've had. I want to offer a simple solution. It might be a little naive of me, but avoid stereotypes and seek to fully understand the other side, or what's causing the conflict. If you don't do that, you can't be successful. In a real short story, I'm currently in a hotel room where this story happened, in the city this story happened in. And I had a 3-hour ride from Salt Lake City to where I'm at in a car with someone who was vastly different from me. And that 3-hour ride, we talked about everything under the sun. And we talked about politics. We talked about what it means to be Black in America. We talked about what it means to be white in America. And the list goes on and on, kids, et cetera. And to this day, this individual, who on paper, or if you were just to meet us both side by side, is as different from me as humanly possible. The way they speak, the way they think, the way they present themselves, what they do in life. And by truly understanding one another, we've both been able to benefit. And at this current moment, he's probably one of my biggest allies. So in terms of cultural conflict, seek to understand, fully understand, and then find a way to use that information and knowledge to benefit you and the other person to create a win-win situation.
Awesome. Phil, I'll repeat the question just to go back a couple steps. So what is it like being the first and only Black person to do something, and share a cultural conflict experience that you've had as a leader?
Yeah, so it's hard. I think that's the first thing I need to share, right? It's not a walk in the park. While it does come with, I think, tremendous pride, as Steve mentioned, I think there's a huge amount of pressure that at least I apply to myself, right? And I can't say this is the burden that everybody should take with them, but I think that the way that I have walked through my career is, if I'm the first, I'm a representative of people who need to follow me, who would like to follow me, right? And so I need to properly represent what everyone in those rooms thinks that I am or am not, right? And so with that, it is my obligation to be a good representative of my communities, right? Of people that look like me, or any type of minority, right? Because I think there's also similar conflicts and strikes that they face as well. And so I think that responsibility forces me to really think about how I walk through life. And so I think there are several things that somebody who's not a minority or who's in any majority group can take for granted, right? They take additional leeways that I cannot take. And so whether it's being overly casual or presenting myself in a way that's unprofessional at times, there are people who have different skin colors than I do who can get away with that without the same fear of repercussion or thoughts about motivation for doing or saying these things. And so it's with that, I think, responsibility that I carry that forces me to always be on my A game. Right? I cannot slip, because the minute I slip, someone's out there trying to get me. Right? And perhaps it's a very defensive approach to life, but it's something I feel is necessary. With the opportunity, the pride that I have, really being the best that I can, and it allows me to create more opportunities for myself. That allows me to create opportunities for others. And so, as a representative of those, as somebody who's in a relative position of power in the organization now, I can help to change some of those perceptions of what a minority looks like, or what is expected of them, right? I can change the amount of support that there, or way that they are supported in the organization. And these are things that truly matter when it comes to providing clear paths for people to be successful behind me. And so it's with that sort of responsibility and that obligation that I put on my shoulders that allows me to be very deliberate and intentional with my actions, and also drives me to be successful, because I know that, if I'm Rosa Parks in the bus, it's not about me having that seat in the front. It's about everybody else who comes behind me who wants that seat in the bus. And so that mentality really forces me to think about what role I play in the careers of hundreds or potentially thousands of others, as I'm looking to change the perceptions for people who are coming in. And so as I look to build really strong relationships, helping people understand people who are not like me, right? People who have very different cultural backgrounds, who don't look like me, don't act like me, having them break through whatever preconceived notions of who I am, right? And really getting to true and deep relationships from a professional perspective that allows me to let them break down their walls safely.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I mean, you both mentioned there's a common thread amongst this, and it's something that we see across the DEI universe, where I think Black women are most famously talking about it, or women in general, about imposter syndrome. But it's something that affects men as well. And so making sure that you understand that you are here because of all the things that you've done before to earn this opportunity, and that your pathway forward in your career and building your career comes out of a combination of your individual contributions, as well as the perceptions of those contributions of others. And both of you mentioned a word that I think I'm going to talk about in my next question, but I want to tee it up this way: the power and importance of relationships. And when I heard that the first time, when someone said that to me, it felt and sounded like a catchphrase. And so everyone knows someone. But the question is, do you know enough of the right people who are making decisions who can have a positive impact on your career, both today and going forward? Having said all of that, my question for both of you, and we'll start with Phil. We'll go in reverse order this time. Do you have a mentor today? I talked to lots of execs who are doing mentoring, but do you have a mentor? And I'm going to pivot this question a little bit. And how did you earn the right to have that relationship with that mentor?
I'll say I don't have a formal mentor today, right? I think I've definitely had people throughout my career, and one most recently, who I'd say was acting as a mentor to me. I think the distinction I have is there's never a formalized relationship there, right? I never went and asked very specific or pointed questions as I would expect a mentor to be doing. And so maybe that's just my sort of misunderstanding of what a mentor ought to be, and the responsibilities there, which is something I didn't even know about until recently. And so I'd say I never had the opportunity to have a mentor that was that's as formalized and crystallized as a relationship. But I did have people who were very inspirational and who helped me in many ways. Most recently, somebody who recognized my potential, right? Someone who I formed a strong bond with. It was based on really forming a very authentic and real relationship. And so to be able to demonstrate who I was, and not masking this going into a room, right? Being able to really show who I was to this person, having them be able to have real conversations with me, and it really become a dialogue. And so through that exploration of that relationship, what I built was the trust and respect of someone, and it was bidirectional. I think it's super important in building a solid relationship is true bidirectional trust and mutual respect. once you have that, there are people who want to help you, right? The same way that I want to help people who are around me. And so I think once you feel or experience that as a recipient, you understand the importance of actually paying that back or paying it forward. And so, looking forward, I'm always looking to find new relationships with folks that I might potentially mentor, even in an informal capacity, because the words that I share with them today or some other time might lead them to, or might inspire them to reach out for another job or ask for a promotion that they don't think they deserve, right? It might inspire them to build the right skill sets to learn how to earn that next position. And so really it's about building solid trust with folks, and it doesn't have to be formalized, but you have to understand how important these relationships are in your own development. But also, as you mentioned, Will, having the right relationships can help get you that job. And I didn't learn this until probably too late in my career, but building the right rapport with folks, having people speak on your behalf, that is something that exists a lot in these companies that we don't see and hear about because it's happening behind our backs. And so this levels the playing field.
You're exactly right. I am not a guest on this show, so I just want to just chime with it because you really hit something, and then I'll go right to Steve. Is that the power of your relationships can be a career accelerator or a career derailer. And I have friends from all walks of life at every level in business and industry, and everyone that I know is in the C-suite. Not one of them got where they are without an internal one-to-one introduction to the hiring process. And so if you're today, as you seek jobs and you have an amazing resume, it's a huge accomplishment, a great story to tell, but you do not have an internal advocate inside the organizations that you want to be a part of, you are missing the boat. And we always say it's like, I don't know, like an old Western, it's better to have your gun and not need it than need it and not have it. But it's so much better to have that relationship and not need it, and need it and not have it. So Steve, I switch to you. Do you have a mentor today? And I'll pivot the question because Phil's comments were pretty interesting. And is your mentorship kind of an official thing, or is it something that's happened kind of as a result of just ongoing engagement?
Yeah, Will and Phil, I mean, what you both said is, as I was thinking about how I'd respond to this question, it's spot on. So I don't know how creative I can be, but I'll definitely pile on. The simple answer is heck yes. I've had mentors probably since day one. So my first job was this fast track management program within Bank of America. And part of that program was to be assigned a mentor. And I probably underestimated the power of having a mentor for a very long time. But over the years, I have recognized that a good mentor is your professional best friend, right? They have your best interest in mind, and they want nothing more in life but to see you be successful. And sometimes these mentors and professional best friends turn into personal best friends. That's cool too, and that's happened. To this day, my professional best friend is also my personal best friend. And they've taught me a few things, right? Learning orientation, helping me focus on the future and not the past. Identifying knowledge gaps and how to close those, and working hard. Passion and grit always wins. And my favorite lesson I think a mentor has taught me over the years is to ditch the excuses. I say this all the time to my daughters and my wife even, but there's no excuse in life but death. And I know that seems a little dramatic, but there's always another solution. There's always another way. You just have to go get it. And so these are the things that mentors have, even if it was innately ingrained into who I am as a person in my soul, these mentors elevate that. So I would say that having a mentor is extremely important. Earning the right to have a mentor, back to Phil's answer, is a two-way street. You have to give them something as well as receiving something. So don't underestimate that. And you have to constantly always seek the people in the best positions to latch onto as being a mentee and having a good mentor. And then the last point I'll make to Phil's other point is you have to pay it forward. So one thing that you're going to hear in anything I say is build trust in the right relationships and pay it forward. And that's the only way that we're going to keep uplifting one another.
Perfect. So for those of you in the audience, I'm going to ask one more question, then I am going to turn it over to you. So I'm going to ask you to start chatting your questions, and we're going to present them to Steve and Phil so they can respond directly to the things that are in your mind. So if I manage to not ask a question that is the one that's burning on you, we want to get to that today. And so I do want to just pile on just a little bit on the mentoring thing. I will tell you, no matter what level you are today, you have the capacity to add value to someone's personal and professional life. And I would tell you, one of my best mentors today is about the age of one of my children. And I learn as much from him as he's learned from me. And if we're together and we introduce you to one or the other of us, we always lead with, this is whoever talks first, my mentor. And so when people look at me and they're looking at him when I'm speaking first, they're like, what? He looks like your son. But he has taught me so much about things like social media etiquette, things that I couldn't have gotten to on my own in the same amount of time. So no matter if you're early career, mid-career, and you're talking to senior level executives, if they're smart, they're listening to you and asking you questions too. So there's no way that you can ever stay on top of everything. So please make sure that when you are looking for mentor relationships, lead with giving help someone else solve a problem. It gets so much easier for them to help you solve your problem. So my last question is this: because we are a diversity executive retained search program, we meet people who experience career stagflation, and that means that your career is going this way, not up. And that career stagnation, because they're not moving upward, they're moving sideways. I want to ask Phil, Steve, for anyone who's experiencing that, meaning that you've been operating at the same level for a considerable amount of your career, what advice would you give them to help them accelerate the opportunity for them to get to the next level in their professional career?
I think to start, right, it's look at what you're doing, right? Look at where you are and what you can change, right? So the first thing is always figure out what can you change about your environment, yourself, and your approach that might help you get a different result, right? That's not to put all the onus and responsibility on you, the individual, but there's a lot of flexibility I think in this industry. There's a lot of different ways to approach the same problem. And so to take that and see there might be a different way to get to that next level in your career, or even a different role in a different new company. These things happen through a couple things that Steve said that were great, actually, is just the excuses, right? I'm going to take your word, Steve, here. Interviewing is hard, but I think as an interviewer in all these sessions, I'm looking for somebody who takes experiences and learns from them, right? So the difference between being critical and finding opportunity to learn shows a lot about who you are. And if you can actually internalize that in a really meaningful way, you then start becoming somebody who presents a growth mindset, right? You are learning and actually looking for new paths. And so I think that's a really important part to preventing stagnation, is to try new things, right? Focus on your own growth and development. And through that, I think ideally the opportunities will come. But also the last question we had, find the right people, right? Talk to someone. There are mentors. There are people who are in the same, very similar situation or different spaces. Just never try to turn a stone over. There's a ton of stones out there. Reach out, cold emails, cold LinkedIn messages. There are a lot of people who are very responsive and can help you move forward.
Got it. Phil, what would you say about that for folks who are kind of career stuck? What advice would you give them?
You said Phil. I'm going to assume that
I'm sorry, Steve. I apologize.
No, you're good. I was like, I thought Phil's answer was great. Like,
I'm sorry, Phil. Repeat everything you just said. Totally. No, I'm just kidding. Steve, please.
So yeah. I mean, this is against everything I stand for, but I'm going to say it anyway because I just, I was talking about the ditching excuses. But it's not always you, right? It usually is. It's up to you to get unstuck and figure it out. But it's not always you. So in terms of the advice that I would give, a few things come to mind. The first thing is find the right company. It's really hard to succeed if you're not somewhere that values and prioritizes things like collaboration and empathy and community, et cetera. So if you're stuck, maybe it's not you, and maybe you're not somewhere where you can thrive. So there's that. Second thing, and this is the most important word in my world for a lot of reasons, and something that Phil and Will, you both have said, is trust. Build a trust bubble. There's a late 70s movie, I think 76, John Travolta, Boy in the Bubble or Bubble Boy or something like that, in which he was immune compromised, and the rest of the world couldn't get to him for good reason, because he would perish. But think about it as the opposite. You want to get people in your bubble that trust you, that you trust, and making sure that trust goes both ways. So building a trust bubble, I think, is highly important into getting unstuck. Third one, I would say, a little cliche, but whatever. Ditch the victim mentality and learn how to be vulnerable. Phil just said it. Creates a growth mindset, psychological safety, and ultimately allows you to take risks that are going to advance your career. You can't get to that next level. You can't be director, VP, CEO, C, whatever you want to be, without taking very calculated risks that hopefully pay off. You can't take risks without ditching the victim mentality and learning how to be vulnerable. The path to get there just does not exist. Last thing I'll say, or one of the last things I'll say, is be creative. Not being creative is boring, and will get you stuck moving horizontally versus vertically. So don't be afraid to take risk and be creative. And last, stay healthy. And this is something that is a very recent, and I won't bore you with my personal stories, but I'm a 40-something-year-old male who's perhaps maybe the most active, fit, and healthy people you're ever going to meet in this world. I run 100-mile races, literally. And recently I went to the doc and was diagnosed with a pretty serious heart thing, which has made me change my perspective on life. So as we look to advance our careers and how to go up versus sideways or whatever, you're not going to go anyway unless you're staying healthy. So look at the people around you. If you're in the gym, I was in the gym this morning at 4 a.m. and there are 2 other people in there. I guarantee you that they're not at the bottom of any totem pole with whatever job they have. Those are the people that are motivated because they understand the importance of staying healthy so that they can be their best, perform their best work for home, and then perform their second best work for work. You can't do either, can't go up, can't go sideways if you're not healthy. So prioritize your health. And those are the handful of things that I would say from an advice perspective that I would give anyone that thinks they're moving sideways and not vertical.
Got it. And we're running out of time here, so I'll ask this last question. I think it's healthy. So if anyone's out there, lots happening in the world. A lot of companies are right-sizing. Some of them are doing RIFs. I've had conversations as recently as yesterday and on Friday with heads of people or HR who are making adjustments with the size of their staffs. So I'd like to give the folks who are watching some advice on interviewing. And so I'll ask both of you, what's your favorite interview question to ask a candidate and why? We'll start with you, Phil.
I love asking about what they're going to do after this job they're interviewing for. Right. And so I think it's a really good way to connect with folks, to let them know that you're unlikely to retire if I hire you for this position. And so I think it does a couple of things, and it shows, number one, that I'm cognizant of that, right? And allows them to get to a new place of vulnerability and authenticity in the interview session that allows me to connect with them as a real person, see what they want to accomplish in their next job post mine. And that allows them to talk more about what they want to actually learn and grow from this particular opportunity. And for me as an interviewer, look and see how that aligns with the opportunity that I can present for them and the people that I have to support them is the most important thing to really understanding how successful they can be in this role, both from the opportunity that I have for them, but also where are they in their career or in their journey. And understanding that with real authenticity is so valuable in the interview session because it's so rare to find that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Great question. How about you, Steve? What's your favorite interview question to ask a candidate and why?
I know we're out of time, but I'm still going to give you 2. I'll apologize later. So my second favorite is you have 5 minutes to interview me, go. And the reason I asked that question is for the same reason my favorite interview question is just to make sure that you're able to think on your feet. You're able to, again, be creative and perform under pressure. I think in the world that we live in, with information flowing so fast and the ask and the burden that come with just showing up to the office every day, you've got to be able to think quickly and pivot and change on the drop of a dime. And if you can't do that, you can get yourself stuck in some pretty unfortunate situations. And my favorite question, I'll pretend like I'm interviewing someone for Black tech jobs, right? So the question would be, if Will McNeil walked into the room right now and you had 5 minutes of his time to get an answer to a question that's you've been pondering for quite some time, what would it be? And what question would you ask Will and why? Okay. And the reason I ask that is to understand if you've done your research. Well, Will's a CEO. You should know exactly who he is. And then how thoughtful are you on what you've been wondering about this company? So whatever job I'm at, whoever I'm representing, I always pick the CEO of that company and say, what would you ask person first and last name if they walked into the room right now? And you'd be surprised how many people say, who is that again? And then it gets real uncomfortable when I say the CEO of the company you're interviewing for. Needless to say, I haven't hired many people that couldn't, I don't think anyone that couldn't answer that question.
And I'll selfishly, because I've interviewed thousands of people over my career. I won't dare tell you my age on live stream, but what my favorite question is, tell me about a time that you failed at something in your professional career and what you did to recover. Because I don't care if you are attempting to do big and bold things, because I've always believed in leaving a mark wherever I landed. And if I wanted to be able to make a change, I needed to be surrounded by other change makers. And if you've never failed at anything, to me, you've never tried anything hard. And so, and that's one. And if you've never failed at anything, that you have a really soft assessment of who you are. And it's also an opportunity to demonstrate some humility, because if we're working together, we are absolutely going to fail at something, because we're going to try really hard to do something that no one's ever done before. And it's just a great way to just humanize a discussion. And I've only had one person just lean back and say, Will, I've never failed. And anyone who said that or some derivative of that, like you, Steve, I chose not to hire. I'm afraid of perfect people. I don't know what that says about me, but it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous. Well, I want to thank all of the folks who have been here for the live. We're going to close down. I'll throw it out one more time. If you have any questions, please chat them. I want to thank our gracious guests for staying over. Phil Morris, thank you so much for joining us. Steve, we really appreciate your insight. And for all the folks who watch this, and if you know someone who can benefit from this conversation, we'll post this on our social media on LinkedIn. We'll have it on YouTube and on Twitter. Feel free to share it with your networks. It's our intent to change the world by changing the mix of people who drive business and technology. I'm Will McNeil, CEO of Black Tech Jobs. Do your best and do your best again. Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.